Pharmaceutical Processing, in conjunction with Interfex 2018, presents Interfex Live.
Welcome to the latest interview in Pharmaceutical Processing series of Interfex Live sessions in advance of Interfex 2018, which takes place April 17th to 19th at the Javits Center in New York City. We're fortunate to have as our guest today Jason Collins, Director of Process Architecture at IPS Integrated Project Services, Inc. Jason is a premier process architect who develops concepts of pharmaceutical facilities for various clients around the world. He focuses on advanced aseptic facility design and is well known for his knowledge of barrier and isolation technology. He has conceptualized and led the final design and construction services for numerous cutting-edge biopharmaceutical facilities around the world. During this session, we'll ask Jason to update us on the latest directions and requirements for current good manufacturing practice facility finishes. Welcome, Jason. Thanks for joining us today. My first question for you is, how do architectural finishes affect current good manufacturing practices?
Well, proper finishes provide smooth surfaces and are easy to clean and protect facilities from microbial growth. Robust finishes are often chosen to essentially protect the facility from itself from impact and harsh chemicals. It's also important that finishes are chosen that are compatible with the facility's cleaning protocols, as aggressive solutions and sporicidal agents will often degrade finishes that are not designed to withstand them.
Are there any particular finishes that receive extensive debate on most projects?
I would say the finishes that we probably talk the most about are the flooring finishes. There's really no easy answer to what is the best flooring for any given application. You really have to look at all the different requirements and the different offerings. But I would say primarily in the pharmaceutical industry, there are really two choices that we see the most: resinous flooring and fully welded sheet vinyl flooring. Resinous flooring is usually made up of multiple layers of either urethanes or epoxy. It's difficult to install, but it's very robust and also very good at resisting harsh chemicals. Sheet vinyl flooring is fairly easy to install. It's quite economical. However, it doesn't often stand up to very heavy loads. So if you have large vessels or heavy loads on pallet jacks moving across your floors, sometimes it can hold up to the torsion from the wheels, and the flooring can be scarred or can be cut. The way the systems go down are quite different, and we often see with resinous floors that it really comes down to the installers. So it's really important to have good quality installers in your area when choosing those kinds of floors.
Do you still see many companies installing stick-built drywall-based cleanrooms, or are most companies adopting modular cleanroom panel systems?
So we used to see a lot more comparisons between stick-built and modular cleanroom systems. But I think what we're finding today is more and more owners have experience with both systems, and they tend to lean towards the modular cleanroom systems for what we feel are clear benefits today. Those benefits really are, quick and clean installation, the ability to have continuous flush monolithic type surfaces, which are easy to clean, and they simply look great. And so when inspectors or auditors come to their facilities present themselves well, and that lends the auditors to believe that they're in full control of their cleaning regimens. Also, for contract manufacturers or pharmaceutical companies that have their own clients, it shows off their facilities pretty well.
Are all cleanroom systems created equal?
Well, they're really not, and there are many different modular cleanroom type systems out there, and it's important to evaluate the systems because they're not equal at all. Many systems that have been developed for the semiconductor industry may not apply to the pharma industry. There's a couple of reasons for that. In the semiconductor industry, they're very much about controlling particulate generation, whereas with the pharmaceutical industry, although we are concerned with particulates, we also have to be concerned with microbial growth. And so some of these clean room systems may have overlapping joints or may not be fully flush details, and they can harbor microbial growth. So that's something to look at. Also, some systems rely on sealant joints at every joint. And the problem with using sealant is it wears over time. And as you clean and scrub the walls in these facilities or any of the surfaces, the sealant can wear out and it often needs to be replaced after a period of time. The clean room panels that we prefer, especially in aseptic and biological facilities, tend to have chemically welded joints where you have PVC coated panels that are actually welded together with a solvent. So it's a hard seal and it's a permanent seal and it doesn't need to be maintained.
When considering facility finishes under cGMP regulations, do the rules apply just to areas involved in actual drug development and manufacturing, or extend out beyond that to include facility, transport, and warehouse areas?
Well, that's a good question because the regulations, I would say, really focus on the manufacturing areas, and that's really where they're putting most of their emphasis. However, to truly have a current good manufacturing facility, you really do need to look at the finishes you're applying elsewhere. You do want to make sure that whatever you're using in the warehouse can hold up to the movement of materials. And certainly in your locker rooms and areas where people are changing, although they're not specifically addressed in many of the regulatory guidelines, you do want to also choose materials there that are easy to clean and will wear over time as needed.
Since cleanliness and sterility are paramount in drug development and other medical applications, are there specific solvents and cleaning materials that are preferred as opposed to the aggressive cleaning solutions and sporicidal agents?
I really wouldn't say that there are materials that are preferred. I think each client probably has their own preferences on what they like and what works for them. But really the importance is proving that whatever cleaning agents you are using or sanitizers, that they truly do reduce the bacteria and clean the facilities in an effective way because the facilities are monitored. So if you're not cleaning properly, when monitoring occurs, you will see hits by the sensors, and you'll have issues if you're not achieving the proper cleanliness.
Should wall surface finishes be designed to withstand nicks and other damage that may occur during normal operations?
Yes, they certainly should, because if you are nicking the wall or denting the wall, chances are you are penetrating the most protective layer of the wall. And I would say that is certainly true with modular clean room systems. They are designed to take a bit of a hit, but if you run a pallet jack or a heavy tank into them, they can be broken. So often what we do is we take care to protect walls where we know there's a lot of material movement. So putting in bumper rails or wall protection or corner guards where we expect them to possibly take a hit to protect that critical layer of finishes.
Are high impact walls recommended to withstand wash down or hose down cleaning requirements?
We typically see hose down and wash down areas in solid dosage facilities. And those areas are certainly designed to withstand hose down or wash down if that's truly occurring. So you'll often see stainless steel armor plating on those kinds of walls or other types of applied materials that can withstand the heat and the moisture. Often you'll see that applied to substantial wall systems as well, either abuse-resistant drywall as a substrate or a concrete block even, depending on the facility type.
How often are surface finishes monitored to make certain that effectiveness has not degraded over time?
That is a good question. Not one that I can necessarily answer as an architect and not an owner of a facility. But I would say most facility owners have a regular maintenance schedule where they go through the facility and they check things that need to be maintained on a regular basis.
Do regulatory authorities have to physically inspect and approve cGMP finishes prior to operation, or do companies submit surface finish plans to regulatory authorities to demonstrate compliant products and methods?
I would say it's usually the latter. They'll submit what their intentions are. They won't necessarily receive approval, and the guidelines are not written so as to describe exactly what finishes you should use. And I believe that's done because they want to give you some leeway in choosing the finishes that work for you. But regulators certainly do have opinions on finishes when they go to inspect facilities. And if they don't feel that the finishes are wearing well, or if they're looking like there's potential to fail, they will comment on it and sometimes ask those finishes to be replaced if they think it may be jeopardizing the quality of the product, or more importantly, the patient.
In a recent bulletin, the National Institute of Health cautioned facility designers to investigate the latest materials and details and not rely on dated designs or practices. How often do the guidelines and regulations change?
So the guidelines and regulations don't change very often. And when they do, they're very small changes. Because if you made very large changes to the regulations overnight, you could bring hundreds of facilities into non-conformance. So, like I said, they really don't give very specific guidance, and for that reason, they don't often make drastic changes from revision to revision.
Have the regulations on finishes changed for 2018? If so, what has driven that change? If not, do you anticipate that the regulations soon will change in any particular area of pharmaceutical facilities?
I don't expect regulations to change on finishes. Really, the regulators don't specify finishes. They're concerned more about the environment and meeting the requirements of the environment. So it still becomes a decision for the owners and for the architects to decide on what finishes are required in order to meet the requirements of the environment, which is certainly defined by the regulators.
Will the growing trend towards development of biosimilars and other biotech products have an impact on standards for cGMP facility finishes?
Well, biosimilars tend to have similar requirements from a cleanliness standpoint to the products they're intending to mimic. So again, from that standpoint, it comes down to what's the requirement of the environment and choosing the finishes that fulfill those requirements or can maintain that type of environment. So depending on your step in the process, depending on whether the product requires sterility or not, whether it's exposed to the environment or not, that will determine which finishes you use in that particular room or area.
In some areas, like doors and frames, there's a choice between welded stainless steel or fiberglass reinforced plastic. What are the benefits of each type, and in pharma today, is one considered the material of choice, and why?
So like all materials, we often need to evaluate between the two. So fiberglass frames and fiberglass doors are very common in facilities. We only really see fully welded stainless steel frames and doors when fire-proof doors are required or fire-rated doors are required because stainless steel doors tend to be very expensive. Other areas where we might see stainless steel frames is if we're overly concerned about the frames being hit by moving objects. The fiberglass door frames can crack and shatter if they're hit too hard. So we may specify stainless frames where we're seeing movement of carts or vessels or that sort of thing. But I would say in most facilities, the fiberglass is what's commonly offered and provided with cleanroom systems, and we upgrade to stainless steel for very specific situations.
Are any special materials and finishes or cleaning methods needed for sealing systems to keep them free of contamination?
Well, we typically treat the sealing materials in the same fashion as we do with walls, for the most part. So if you are in a critical environment and you are relying on a clean room system, you'll find that the finishes for the ceilings are the same as the finishes for the walls. The only difference is we have often a lot more penetrations, which we need to be concerned about. So choosing the right light fixtures and the right filtration systems and making sure they're properly sealed to the ceiling becomes extremely important. So again, picking a system that has robust detailing in those regards is important. Also, when you are doing stick-built facilities, this also has to be taken into consideration. And because many of those openings are formed in the field, they can sometimes be a little bit more difficult to seal up.
Similarly, are there special finishing requirements for furniture and other equipment that may move from place to place within a particular clean room or among several rooms?
Yeah, I think, we also evaluate the finishes on the furniture in the same way. So the first question I always ask is, what are you going to be cleaning the furniture with? If it's the same aggressive sporicidal agents, because you're in an area that requires routine sanitization, then we're going to look for stainless steel finishes. In fact, if the furniture contains items that are welded, we're going to look for higher quality stainless steel like 316 L for low carbon stainless steel, because the carbon in the steel can sometimes corrode from some of the sanitizing agents. So again, it comes down to what are you cleaning it with and how easy is it to clean. So you don't want things that can absorb any moisture and are certainly easy to wipe down.
Lastly, what is the one piece of advice that you would give to facility owners and designers?
So I would say the best thing to do on your project is to build a mock-up, especially if it's the first time you are using particular finishes in your facility. It gives you the opportunity to actually have the local crews come in that would do the actual installation and install it somewhere in your facility. Clear out an area in your warehouse or in a maintenance location, a room that's not being used for anything. And you can view right away the quality of the installation. And you can also test out the finishes. So if you wanted to evaluate different floor systems, you can have 2 or 3 systems installed, and then you can bring in your operators and they can clean the floors and see how cleanable they are, or roll their equipment across them and just see how they stand up. Another benefit of that is it actually allows you to get your operators involved in choosing the finishes, and they can feel like they're becoming a part of the design process, and ultimately have an opinion in the finishes that they will be living with for quite some time.
Thanks, Jason. We want to thank Jason Collins, the Director of Process Architecture at IPS Integrated Project Services, Inc., for joining us today. If you'd like to learn more about IPS, company representatives will be at booth 2132 during Interfex 2018, April 17th to the 19th at the Javits Center in New York City. IPS will also be hosting the IPS Technology Tours on April 18th at 10 a.m. and 1 p.m., starting in the Javits Center lobby mezzanine. Thank you for joining us today in preparation for the pharmaceutical industry's premier annual event.
Pharmaceutical Processing, in conjunction with Interfex 2018, presents Interfex Live.